coordinator slash curator of the Monday Night Reading Series, and we're really happy to see you all. It's like the entire Poetry Project staff is here tonight, so hi, Arlo and Stacey too. Always, I tell you guys what's going to happen with the project this week, and this is a really good week. Jen Cooley and T.S. Discom will be here on Wednesday, and then the following Wednesday, the 22nd, Jenna Osman and Majed Zahar will be here. So even if I've mispronounced Majed's name, and then, I mean, kind of on and on for the rest of the month, so I encourage you to take a look at the calendar online. This is a nice evening because we are in the presence of one of our Emerge Surface B fellows, Rangi McNeil, who is going to be introduced tonight by Edwin Torres. We'll have Rangi McNeil read first, and then we'll take a short break, and then Eric will read. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce Edwin. Edwin Torres' books include Yes Thing, No Thing from Ruth Books, and Ameriscopia, which is forthcoming from the University of Arizona on February 24th. It's very exciting. He's received fellowships from DIA, NIFA, and the Foundation for Contemporary Performance Art, among others. Anthologies range from Aloud, Voices from the New York Poets Cafe, to Kindergarten. How do you pronounce that? Kindergarten. Avant-garde poems, plays, and songs for children, to Postmodern American Poetry, Volume 2. He's been involved with the Poetry Project for 2 decades and currently lives in Beacon, New York. Please welcome Edwin.
Rangi, have you emerged? Have you surfaced? Have you been? The name of the mentorship program is Emerge Surface B. And I had the honor of working with Rangi this past year. So thank you for your charm, your wit, your humor, your drive. Of all the things I've learned from Rangi McNeil over the course of this mentorship, key among them is trust. We meet over the last year and invariably cover the artifacts of daily life that infiltrate your typical agenda. Both of us encumbered with the duality we bear. Always punctual, focused, a gazelle motoring through the crowd. He always stood up from far away. Our meetings would spread over time, between schedules, life events. The year was a challenging beast to manage, yet we knew the connection was intact. To be regarded as a mentor stirs up unexpected recollections connected to your own life teachers. The act of walking someone through a minefield is not to be taken lightly. I felt great generosity with all parties involved. The Poetry Project, Stacey Zamazik, guiding this mentorship program and letting it develop organically. And of course, Rangi, his trust in me with his work, with the time whenever we could meet, him living in Brooklyn, me upstate in Beacon, his openness yet solid rootedness that was wholly evident in the body of his poems. Trust, to allow the poem space to do its job of conveying the moment with clarity and little superfluous obstacle. Great trust and confidence in the tightly packed structure of his work, in the open territory of page, of land, of story. The trust in the work to let the reader return where they need to. I mentioned to him that it seems as though he's writing a screenplay. Many of his recollected moments have a narrative drive, elegantly played out with his carefully distilled language. A graceful intent to not get in the poem's way. But this is a very human grace, aware of its ability to fail, an antiquated notion of etiquette within the obstacles we bear. I would say it's a discerning etiquette, befitting a New Yorker's sense of nobility, and I say that with no irony. As a true New Yorker, I know the real deal. The biting humor that cuts through the sarcasm that Rangi laces with a homegrown tradition, bringing him back to family. He is loyal to the haunting disparities of a barren landscape, at once filled with evocative color, then taken away in a brutal sort of truth echo. The questions we ask are the ones that spill from what you're given, from the action of allowing the raw appeal, its consequence to unfurl, to be heard. Rangi McNeil understands that particular sense of allowing, those gifts that hide within poetry's lair, the ones pulled from heresy and throat. Thank you, Rangi.
I don't know that all that's true, but it was nice to hear. I want to say thank you first to Poetry Project for choosing me, and to Edwin for all of his help, and for my friends who've come, some of them across state lines. So I am likely to cry because that is part of what I do, so ignore it. Unless it's not, then I'm anything to show. I would also like to say, until very recently, I was part of a relationship, and most of these poems were written in that context, and so this reading is dedicated to that experience. The one truth on which all others are but a variation. Ours is a partial language, part pantomime, part grimy guesswork, adulterated speculation as to meaning and motivation. Translated, heart suggests a familiar universal device, though internal chemistries vary, though components be the same and not uncommon. The world owes us nothing. It promises less. Call it freedom or free will or Wednesday. Catechism. Think of it like this. The Arctic is frozen ocean surrounded by land. Antarctica, frozen land surrounded by ocean. Similar, but not the same. Like a passion for and a devotion to. The wafer and the host. Our best efforts were insufficient. A filthy film covered our mouths and our words. Little lies whose color changed to black from white. This poem I wrote when I lived in Budapest many years ago. And there's this Polish poet whose last name is Herbert. He has this poem called Elegy of Fortinbras. And this poem speaks to that poem. And it's called The Familiar Dark. I am alone now. Would that we could talk dead to living, mother to son, across archipelagos of fabrication and fear. I recall your fingers fat and swollen as if steeped in steamy water, your hair a raveling nest, black as night and long. You were a mother when barely a woman, little acquainted with rigor, with ritual. I live as you would not and have dragged you back into the custody of crepe myrtles and consequence. My devotion is a humor, humid and hungry. I devour and am devoured. Still we are apart. These next poems there's this anthology of gay poems, poets from the South, which is sort of a ridiculous thing, but I submitted some poems, they're going to publish them, so I ought not be ashamed, but it seemed weird. After I had done it, I thought, I'm not the least gay poet, no, but anyway. So these next 4 poems are from that. This first one is called Family Reunion. Today I'm thankful for kosher hot dogs, no assholes or elbows, and for mood-regulating medications, for rehab and gastric bypass and abortions. Summer suits us, dark as we are, and so prone to revelry. This next poem, my mother died when I was 13, and for a long time I thought like the primary adult relationship was with her. And then a few years ago I realized, I was like, well, I got a dad, a brother, and a sister, but perhaps it's not. And so this poem speaks to that. Pater familias. Because dead isn't as cliche as deadbeat. I said he was though he lives and breathes, and is always almost the first to call come Christmas or my birthday. He swears he recalls my bout of chicken pox, a legion of flamed lesions littering the inside of my mouth and all of the flesh of my 8th grade body, save the soles of my feet. My aversion to tomatoes, affinity for Jesus Christ Superstar, and the solid gold dancers. He's kept some baby teeth and a shoebox of Polaroids gone off color with time and touch. Our gaping grins, proof enough that once upon a time, in a land of malt liquor, high fives, and Sanford and Son, we were together, free from the stench of steadfast disappointment. He loves the Lakers, the Yankees, and his T-bones well done. And on more than a few lunch breaks, he pays any available crackhead $5 to suck him off behind the gunmetal gray utility shed in the cemetery where what remains of my mother's mother lies in an unmarked grave. It gets way worse. That was the highlight. What I will tell myself concerning death when next I have my full attention. Because it is the ultimate resolution, it cannot be unresolved, and is less decipherable than prophecies spoken in an oblique language, lacking proper nouns, innuendo, and action. You returned to this place you are grateful to no longer call home to help bury your youngest uncle, he who let his only child and myriad sisters believe his chemo and radiation had come to their appropriate and resolute resolution, so that he might pass his last days unfettered by premature grieving. And this passes for peace, confidence in the availability of icy refreshment come summer, of heat and bleak midwinter. This is one of a number of poems that, based upon characters from the Bible or from nursery rhymes. And this poem's called Samson, and it begins with a quote from Judges 16:17. I have been a Nazarite unto God from my mother's womb. If I be shaven, then my strength will go from me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man. One cousin born ashen and still, his viscera on the outside of his body. At 16, he died young, though much older than had been expected. Another won over on a sidewalk in Midtown by a diplomat's son who sent a check and a rose-covered cross to the funeral. It was lupus that left my mother speckled as a hyena, gnarled as ginger root. Nothing betrays like the body betrays. Not even love. No, not even. Oh, and there's also this, which has the worst cover ever. I mean, it's really embarrassing. It's a new, of gay poems. I was on a roll when it came to submitting to gay publications. And so this poem is called "And Read to Gesture Where the Past Has Been." News of your death reached me on the 7-month anniversary. Since spring, the world has been a different place. How have I not noticed? Now I need never find the time to answer your letters and must trust someone else to explain Fellini's genius and the end of Blood Meridian. What are the chances I will ever get Jazz or Pollock or Maria Callas? So much for water under bridges and our coming to our senses. Your name is more than the sound for who you were, and love is love's reprieve. This poem was written for my friend Amir, with whom I went to college. He may be the most intelligent and multifaceted person I know, which doesn't prevent him from being crazy and a total pain in the ass. But this is for Amir. Leading theory of natural law. Our mothers were girls, and often wrong, as children often are. We are no one's mother, and children no longer. The past may never pass, but it may be subdued. A sip of whiskey in the baby's bottle, a haircut while he sleeps. You must choose the rooftop or the noose. Those who truly wish to die, die. The rest of us pretend. And this poem, I'm from a really small town in North Carolina, and I grew, well, when we weren't as poor as we were in the beginning, we lived on Blues Farm Road, and this poem's called Blues Farm Road. I tried to get the gecko, which suns itself on the front porch, to trust me, to stay a while I drink my coffee and read a poem or two aloud toward the road. But I'm not harmless, and the gecko senses danger no matter how benign and cautious my approach. Necessary fire. This morning on the J to Williamsburg, I overheard, when a body is cremated, the furnace temperature is determined by the heart. Heat sufficient to ash, flesh, and bones will not dissolve a heart, its muscles. The larger the heart, the hotter the flames. And yes, it does now seem prudent that you've saved matches, fists of kindling. Seems to be going quickly. I'll read them all in reverse after this. Poem ending with a line by Rilke. I have loved much less of the body than I have touched. Forelock, armpit, pelvis. I have asked, gone unanswered, and am done with faith. To whom, heart, would you complain? The fool fails to return to the place of his last happiness. In our myths and legends, isn't it the act of turning back toward whatever happiness lies behind, the lover's sigh, earthenware vessels on a low shelf inside a kitchen in a city furiously aflame, which ultimately proves ruinous? I've carried your corpse with me many miles these many years. How happy I ought to be. Persephone later. Roots clump and crowd about the face. The longer ones scratch cheek and collarbone. The only light to speak of is the light of which we spoke when once we spoke of before. Now is listless, endlessly opaque, and we are diligent in our disinterest. Renunciation surpasses recollection. There is a mean bone in my body. Upon it I have come to rely. Poem written on the back of a postcard. There are words I intended that do not come. These are their substitute. That's it. No. That's another better idea. Oh, this is a breakdown house. This is my camouflage. After almost 40 years, I still feel a little shame when pissing in the shower. Not enough to desist, but enough to come as close to blushing as a June-born blue-black boy can. So that was mine. You build toward the comic relief. There's another hero. Idiom of the anti-hero. Dear Lord, don't let me die here in this heat beside these fat girls in leotards. I'm trying to do something a little like that. That guy was really sad. And I'm not always, but I often am. Sundays in Park Slope with Brian. Come, let's lie, limbs intertwined, stomachs gurgling, breath uneven, across this not-so-brass bed. Damn time and ever-encroaching responsibility. I've never known a scratch that, given proper attention, failed to flourish into a wound. Let's keep our hands otherwise occupied, our festering to a minimum. And my grandmother's best friend's daughter was crazy when I grew up, but she was always really kind to me, and this is for her, Polly. She turned her green garden hose on the boys who would kick your African-looking ass for sport. And some days, from 2 doors down, you could hear her singing Motown, her voice less Diana Ross and more the various background girls. Story was, she'd been the smartest senior in high school, white folks included, but a bad hit of acid messed her up, left her prone to fits and flashbacks. Another lackluster Tuesday, and she's a sudden statue in a yellow housecoat and bare feet in the middle of Beta Street. Her retreat so deep, car horns and neighbors' calls can't reach it. Afterwards, she's alive again, and so grateful for a cool drink. Sweet tea with just a splash of pulpy homemade lemonade, most especially. Down the wrong road both ways. This is the last day of the season for the faint of heart to wear white with real conviction. Another hurricane is having its way with Florida. Sparrows flower in the side yard oak like leaves. Their song, a choral cacophony, interrupts daydreams of sidewalks, subways, and love at first sight. Manhattan is a lie I tell myself. The places I would go are no longer there. Okay, 2 more. And then out of here. Maybe not. So I think I have it, oh, here it is. So this next one is called Ode to Herbert and Blondina, who are my grandparents, who were they're really attractive and the most poorly matched and pair ever in the history of mankind. Like, if two people should never have gotten married, that was my grandparents. Except now I sort of understand the relationship a little better at 40 than I did at 12. So, Ode to Herbert and Blondina. To call the heart spacious is to say fire is hot, water wet, Honolulu a long walk from Poughkeepsie. To say nothing of its mysteries. Calluses and contempt tell their tales, true but never comprehensive. Lida's liaison with the swan wasn't all downhill and devastation. There's revelry on the reservation, whistling in Sing Sing, and a chance you meant I do when first you said it, and for all the days that followed, especially those when nigger please and try me, motherfucker, try me, came as close to kindness as you dared. And the last poem, thank you for listening, thank you for ignoring the crying. A light year is a unit of distance, not time. Only on freeways and strictly at night can I believe in love. Tail lights, mile markers, exit ramps. 74 west towards Charlotte, Aretha singing like she hasn't in decades, and the distance between what I have and what I desire is greater than that between my narrow body and the dim clutch of stars I can just make out above the glare of headlights. The sky is vast and low-hanging. I've entrusted my fear to no one. Thank you.